606, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Good morning, everybody. Brian here with you. Jake Barty producing. We call it Mornings with Brian Haldane, and we are off and running on this busy Monday morning. Monday morning, excuse me. Man, what a weekend. What an absolutely incredible weekend. If you were on campus Saturday, I mean, the vibe was electric. The weather was perfect. Took a minute to get everybody up and running just because it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. But, man, Saturday was wonderful. Unless, of course, you're Ed Ogeron and you're counting the evening. What a way to start the morning this morning. Ed Ogeron out as LSU's football coach. He will play out the string, finish out the 2021 season, and then, in the words of Jace Robertson from Duck Dynasty, he gone. Very interesting turn of developments Saturday night into Sunday morning. And then, of course, everybody got caught up with it all on Sunday, as now Ed Ogeron is gone. He is out. Well, he's not out. He's going to be there for the remainder of this season. But 2022 will not be part of the Ed Ogeron era. We'll have a ton of that throughout the show this morning. We'll break it down every way possible. Matt Moscona from AFR, from our sister station, 145, 149. Matt's going to hop on board at 7:15 this morning. Richard Condon will be by at 6:35. He'll have a thing or two to say about it as well. Actually got a full roster here, not just talking about Ed Ogeron and LSU football, though we will talk about that a lot. Got the folks from AARP hopping on at 6:52. What have they got going on? Well, I'm glad you've asked. The AARP Foundation has released a map of social isolation hotspots in Louisiana. What does that mean for us? Well, we'll get to it at 6:52. Like I said, Moscona's coming on at 7:15. We got Stephen Waggis back from LABI hopping on board at 7:35. Going to talk a little bit about the tax reform that's on your ballot in less than a month. He'll probably sound off on Ogeron as well. In the 8 o'clock hour, we've got Medical Monday. Yeah, I know Medical Monday is normally at 7:15. We're pushing it back to 8:15 today. Doing a little swap on the segments for a couple of different reasons, not the least of which is I don't think there's a bigger story out there than Ed Ogeron and LSU parting ways. Therefore, I wanted to get to Matt at 7:15. And then Fox News' Brett Baier, going to round out the guest list. Been looking forward to this one, heading all the way through the weekend, actually. Brett Baier is going to join us to talk about, let me get to the right page. Let me continue to get to the right page. Here we are. Brett's got a new book called To Rescue the Republic, Ulysses S. Grant, The Fragile Union, and the Crisis of 1876. There's actually a lot of parallels between this book and where we're at today. I'm looking forward to talking with Brett about that. Plus, there's no shortage of topics to cover with him as well. So, if you were following the story Thursday after the game, which, by the way, fantastic game. We'll have more on that in the next segment. But it looked like there were a lot of rumblings that things were in the works. A lot of the conversation I had was about the back and forth going on at basically, for lack of a better term, a negotiating table. And at the end of the day, on into Sunday, we get a joint press conference from Ed Ogeron and Scott Woodward, letters published at LSUsports.net from Ed Ogeron and Scott Woodward, and a parting of the ways. First three questions I have about this are, number one, what does this mean for the rest of the season? And I'm sure the answer I'm going to get to that question in short order is, doesn't matter. It means good things for the program long term. That's fine. Number two, is this the new standard before letting a coach go? Granted, it might not be. This might be just a blip on the radar, an aberration, if you will. But a coach who is a year and a half, a COVID year and a half removed from the best season college football's ever seen, gets the axe. We're that quick to write off 2019 as a fluke. Will the next coach be held to that standard? Are we going to see that standard in all sports? And number three, where do we go from here? Who do we grab to get him? Who's going to come in as the next head coach? It's way early in the process to determine that. Do you go out and just fling as much money as you can at the most established name out there? That's kind of Scott Woodward's MO. He knows how to write a huge check. Oh, and is number four is when you're looking at the program moving forward. Ed Ogeron said in the press conference he's going to continue recruiting. Is that do we even worry about that? Are you going to get the same level of Ed Ogeron recruitment out of this as you have in the past? Anyway, we got a lot of ground to cover with it, and we will break it down. But the bottom line is Ed Ogeron will play out the string at LSU. Heartbreaker after the way the game was won on Saturday. I mean, there were still gaps, but they look good. I tell you what, let's not talk football right now. Let's talk football in just a minute after we take a quick break and check traffic. Before we take that break, though, okay. If you've been in a major accident or have had a major injury, you might want to be thinking about Baton Rouge Physical Therapy. I might want to be thinking about them right now. They've got 6 locations throughout the greater Baton Rouge area. They've been around for more than 60 years. Baton Rouge Physical Therapy, when you're there, you're family. They sit you down. They talk about your comfort level when it comes to pain treatment. They talk about what you can and can't do. They talk about how to maximize getting you back to being your best you physically. If you've been dealing with any persistent pain or a nagging injury, don't wait any longer. Give them a call. 917-9185. 917-9185. 917-9185. Set up a free screening. See if physical therapy can be beneficial to you. Or visit any of their 6 locations throughout the greater Baton Rouge area. To find those locations, visit brptlake.com today. Get back to being your best you. Think physical therapy with Baton Rouge Physical Therapy. Morning, Renee. Morning, Clinton. Fair warning right now, I'm not going to be very talkative on the YouTubes today because I threw my back out last night and I'm in an intense amount of pain. Intense. Oh, I need to forward you an email. I'm going to want this cut in this segment, okay? All right. I'm going to go 17 and 18 and then get to this one, okay? I did. Oh, went very well. Very well. Hey, good morning, Christy. Welcome in, boo. Sorry if my whining and moaning kept you up throughout the night. Every time I moved, I felt it again. I sent it to the one that I send everything to. So okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll act as if you don't. .617 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. So before all the hubbub about Ed Ogeron broke on Sunday, there was a football's game to be played on Saturday, and LSU comes out alive for an 11 a.m. kickoff, which, by the way, that might have been the most lively I've seen an 11 a.m. kickoff. That was definitely the most lively I've seen the football team for an 11 a.m. kickoff. But the vibe on campus was just super. The weather on campus was super as well, and I think those things played into it. Having Florida out there played into it. So in LSU's upset win over Florida, Tigers got a record-setting performance by junior running back Ty Davis-Price. The junior from Baton Rouge rushed for a school record 287 yards on 36 carries, also had 3 touchdowns. Davis-Price gives credit to his O-line.
Coach Peach and the staff, they challenged us the last few weeks. They challenged us to go in and create a running game. And the O-line, man, they've been coming with it every day at practice, just busting their tails, doing extra work. I can't be more proud of them.
It wasn't just the O-line. There was one other player involved in this whole equation there's no way I'm not talking about, but we'll get to him in a second. LSU rushed for 321 yards, while one of the top rushing attacks in college football, Florida, was held to 138. The defense also forced 4 turnovers, which resulted in 21 points. LSU linebacker Damone Clark had a game-winning INT late in the fourth quarter. Clark says a players-only meeting led by injured defensive end Andre Anthony kind of put the team in the right frame of mind.
I mean, we had a great week of practice, also with the offense. Dre led the play-only meeting on Monday, and, he told us how it was, and we needed that. We just told each other that we're going to go out there and play for one another, and, that's what we did.
So LSU will head up to Oxford to take on Ole Miss, who won in one of the more bizarre finishes to a football game I've ever seen, up to and including having golf balls thrown at Lane Kiffin while at Tennessee. That was crazy Saturday night. 2:30 kickoff, I believe 2:30 kickoff this coming weekend at Ole Miss. Now, who's the other player that was involved? Not just the O-line. It's a tight end. It's preferred walk-on. It's number 82. His name's Jack Mashburn. And I got to tell you, everywhere he went, a body fell. Dude was balling out. Dude was putting hats on hats. Ty Davis-Price goes for maybe half that yardage without him. Here comes the Fox Business Report.
We'll get into it. What a game. I was not expecting us to win at all. Not even.
There was a part of me that was thinking it might happen, but
I genuinely thought it was a blowout. It wasn't going to be even competitive. I didn't even care to go on campus beforehand or really care about the game until I got to Don Juan Cigar Bar for pre-production of whiskey and wine. Then it turned up. Yeah.
All right, I'm sending it from my laptop now instead of my phone. See if that does anything.
Okay.
I'll probably not be able to use it after this, but
I got one.
do I?
The Gordian dog.
Yeah. Put it on the way back in then. I'll toss to it in the next segment. Yeah, there's a lot more to this than wins and losses. I mean, a lot.
So we're going to start with that cut first and then the other.
Yeah. My wife says, who cares about what's going on with LSU? We want to hear about the fourth grade basketball report. We went over to the other side of the river. Came home with hardware. Thank you very much.
That's what I like to hear. No big deal. Just running the table. Nothing yet as far as live reads.
Okay.
Nothing new.
Excuse me.
A gazelle runs like a deer.
.624 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. So, okay, if you regularly listen to the show, you know that I've been hyped about this Jack Mashburn kid for some time because he went to the same high school as me, and we don't get a whole lot of football guys out of this high school. He might be the first one to ever start for LSU. So I get a question on YouTube. I didn't watch the game, but are you bringing up the St. Paul's guy because he's from St. Paul's or because he did well? I admit to not watching the game. My answer to that question is yes. Now, you're hard-pressed to find a highlight when it comes to a guy who's throwing a block, right? So, if you're wondering if I'm overhyping him because of a personal affiliation, I give you Doug Morrow. And I believe Gordy Rush is in this clip as well, courtesy of the LSU Sports Radio Network.
Add it to the total for Ty Davis-Price, and it's a first down for LSU. He's got 219 yards rushing now.
What a great block by Mashburn. He was the left up back, came and hit the trap block on the linebacker that freed Price. Jack Mashburn's been outstanding.
He has done that.
Was that the end of it? Oh, keep playing it.
And again, in this game, I mean, he's kind of the star of this LSU team today.
So it's all three of the guys from the LSU Sports Radio Network right there. Chris Blair, Gordy Rush, and Doug Morrow. Not just me saying that. That's Doug Morrow, star of this LSU team today. Good for him. Good for him. It's a good story amidst a number of, other stories that came out for Saturday. So that brings us around to Ed Ogeron's out. Out as the head coach of LSU football after this season. Here is Athletic Director Scott Woodward.
At LSU, we expect to compete for SEC and national championships year in and year out. We are proud of that standard and will always work to uphold it. Our last two seasons have simply not met that standard.
Okay, well, the last two seasons would have been 20 and 19, right? This season and last season, if you're saying we're not up to standard, if we're saying LSU's not up to standard, fine, but the season's not over with yet. Anywho, it's a standard that Coach Ogeron has mentioned a number of times. He did so again.
I knew we had to sustain that momentum and we had to sustain that standard. And I know that the last 2 years hasn't been the standard of LSU. So when he came and talked to me after the Kentucky game, I knew that it was time.
I'm befuddled about holding someone to any standard at all from last year because you throw out everything from the COVID year. You didn't get a spring training. You got very limited fall camp while you had turnover on both the offensive and defensive sides of the football when it came to coaching. You had Scott Linehan come in as passing game coordinator. You had Bo Pelini come in as your defensive coordinator. And there was zero time for them to implement what they wanted to do. Oh, but that's cool, Brian. You got a good 2 or 3 scrub games, rent-a-wins on the front end of the season. No. You only had a 10-game conference-only schedule. Not to mention the fact that the number of guys you had to replace was higher than the number of guys that most other teams had to replace, simply because 2019 was so perfect. Said that made more people to draft. And then you had the number who opted out because of COVID as well. I know, every team had opt-outs from COVID. But nonetheless, is that your judging standard? Is that your benchmark? Now, hindsight, we're never going to know. But if LSU had done better in 2020, would we still be sitting right here doing the exact same thing? Nonetheless, LSU 9-8 since leaving the national championship game. So Scott Woodward pulls the trigger, decides to make the move.
We determined that it is time for us to move in a new direction. That was LSU's decision, but it is one Coach O understands.
Though he understands, says it's not from a lack of effort.
I know I went to work as hard as I could every day, tried as hard as I could every day, and that's all you can ask.
So, well, no, apparently it's not all you can ask. You can ask for more W's, honestly. So O stays on for the rest of the season before the payouts begin. How do those payouts look? Well, Ed Ogeron's going to get $5 million this December. Then 2 payouts of $1 million in 2022. 2 payouts of $750,000 in 2023, 2 of $500,000 in 2024, and 2 of $426,000 in 2025. Ogeron's company will receive a payment of $750,000 twice a year until 2025 as well. This put pen to paper yesterday, October 17th. So it is a done deal. So what happens next between now and then? I mean, it was clear Saturday. It was clear that the team has not given up on him, right? But how's that going to look moving forward? And looking beyond this year, Coach Ogeron actually addressed what's going to happen with recruiting. He's still going to be out there.
I'm still recruiting players, tell them to come to LSU. This is a great place. I recruited them to come to LSU. Why would I tell them any different now? So I'll tell them to come to LSU. This is a great place. They can hire a great coach. You can have great success here at LSU. My message to the recruits will not change.
The message going out won't change, but what will the message received be? That's kind of a different story there. LSU's going to be in a weird spot where they're going to be expected to name somebody sooner rather than later. All right, quick break. Condon's up next.
Sorry about that. It looks like you gave me a hand signal to cut it early.
No. can't get up today. I'm sorry. Threw my back out. Squatting, doing squats.
Not a man in me, man. I gave up legs in June of '84.
Well, my daughter started powerlifting today, so we
yeah.
went down to my cousin's gym yesterday. And everything at my gym is on a Smith machine, so I never know how much I can actually lift because they've got the guide thing there for the bar. So he's got a CrossFit gym, so everything's loose and open and everything. So I was like, "You care if I know you're working with Carrie, but you care if I try a little bit of it?" So I throw 225 on the bar, like it's nothing, dude. Like it's nothing. So I was like, "All right, I know I can do 315." So another plate on each side. But I was like, "Wait, let me make sure I'm not overdoing it." I know.
Maybe a 25 on each end instead of a 3.
That's what I did. That's what I did. So I went to 275, a little more than halfway there. I got down to the base of the squat, and my squats are I go deep.
Did you have somebody support you?
About midway through exploding back up again, I just felt it pop. I was like, well, shit. Threw it up though, man. I could have gotten 315, but I was in a little bit of pain last night. Well, I was in a lot of pain last night. I went to bed. It was that much worse this morning, and I can barely move now. So.
Oh, I heard your spot, and I'm going to BRPT now. It's South Obray's Brittany.
Yeah.
I've gone to see him before with the Achilles and everything.
Yeah.
I love those people, man. They're the best.
They really are. They're thorough.
All I can do is cardio for a month, man, or I'm going to have rotator cuff surgery.
Yeah.
Coach, Brian, that's the last surgery you want.
Rotator cuff? I would imagine.
Because, what I was telling him is like, yeah, but I can still do, he goes, no. Even though you're still doing buys and you don't feel anything, it's still strain on the joints and a whole bit.
Yeah.
So now it's just cardio, which is, it's cool. But besides that, you all right? Are you going to have to see somebody or BRPT? Or what are you going to do?
Probably going to end up at BRPT.
You don't need a referral now. You can just go.
Right. Well, if I want to have my insurance covered.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
I'm going over to see Nacho after the show.
Big Notch.
Come to find out, me and Rocco both go see Hal Bergamo.
Do you really?
Yeah. You want to talk about a funny bit. Rocco talking about not wanting to get a prostate exam until he changes doctors.
Oh. With Notch in his fingers.
My doctor was an All-American center at LSU. Have you seen the paws on that guy?
Hell with that. He's like a grizzly in Yellowstone.
I know. It's like the Revenant. Oh, shit. Bless you.
Jake, you got a haircut? Looks good, man. He kind of looks like a different guy.
A little bit.
Good-looking guy, but he looks a little different today.
You wear glasses, I thought. Okay. There you go. So, fourth graders go over to Holy Family on the west side, come home with hardware. You want to talk about a story that goes full circle? Kill the mics for this.
Great guy, man.
So, yeah, I don't know if he wants his business out there as to. You never know how private somebody is.
No, he's a cool dude.
Yeah.
You talk about people who've represented LSU well over the years. He's one of those
best.
guys, man.
You got Booyah, by the way.
Okay. I had Muya on Friday.
Booyah. Used to go to the one on Lee.
There was a Muya on Lee?
Mm-hmm. It didn't stay open that long. Right by the Baskin Robbins.
There's a Baskin Robbins on Lee?
Wow. Unbelievable. Haldane, and you talk Baton Rouge stuff in the morning. Isn't that beautiful?
No. I know.
Wait.
Wait, what's Lee Drive?
Wait, what's this Capitol stuff downtown?
Never heard of it. You mean there's people that work in that lighthouse?
Yeah.
637 Talk 107.3 FM. 638 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, roll and ride along. You want to talk about the height of dedication, the height of professionalism, just the level of broadcaster there is in Baton Rouge. In here on his day off. His day off today, people. Richard Condon. What's happening, Rich?
You tell me, buddy. A lot of stuff going on. And I know we're going to talk about Ed, but let me say this, big.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a better 11 a.m. kickoff
No.
in the history of LSU football?
No.
Because normally 11 a.m. kickoffs years prior were on TBS. Two
Right.
unranked teams,
Right.
LSU and Vandy,
Right.
under Holman.
Yeah.
LSU State under Holman. But the weather was perfect, and I will say this. Besides the 2018 upset of number 2 Georgia in Tiger Stadium, I've never seen an LSU fan base during a day game, especially in the second half when it went back and forth in Florida right before halftime, had the 42-yard Hail Mary. Then McGotham picks off the next possession, Florida. And I've never seen an LSU fan base that fired up and that inspired, because after the Kentucky game, whatever happened, did the players find out beforehand some kind of way, social media, what was going to go down? I don't know. But, man, they absolutely showed up. And the LSU fan base, even in the postgame show, Charlie and I on Eagle, I gave one of the awards, the MVPs, to the LSU fan base.
Yeah.
Because, I went to the game, let it happen. I would think maybe 70,000 realistic, give it to a couple of thousand. And, man, the LSU fans were loud, got back to the studio, getting ready for the postgame, fired up the TV. And it sounded like it was a night game in Tiger Stadium with almost 100,000 people. So hats off to the LSU fans. They had something to rally behind. And what an effort by Ty Davis Price. And let me say this. I know they extinguished all of Darius Price's rushing records. But really, Darius Geis, right. So realistically, he didn't break Fournette's record.
Right.
Fournette did 284 against Ole Miss.
Right.
Geis went 285 against A&M.
Right.
So he really broke Geis's record, but I understand because of all the off-the-field allegations against Darius Geis, LSU just simply removed that.
Wait, did you see what Tyrann Mathieu tweeted about Fournette?
I did not.
Fournette did it on like 16 carries.
So like
Ty Davis Price did it on 36.
Yeah.
You give Fournette 36 carries, he's still running today.
But you know what, Brown, when last Monday, a week ago today, when Coach met with the media, and then I think it was last Thursday after practice, he said, look, my offensive line is healthy now. I expect great things. And I really thought it was a lot of coaches speak. I really did.
Same.
All right, here we go. Fine. Hey, look, we've seen the offensive line really not do anything. Yeah, they rushed for a number of yards against Kentucky, but they were so far ahead in the second half, Kentucky had backups, defensive line linebackers. But, man, that offensive line, if that offensive line was totally healthy all season long, I don't know. But Ty Davis Price comes out of nowhere. Some of those runs he made were absolutely incredible. And Jacques Doucet with Channel 9, I saw him on Twitter. He posted a photo. He was walking out after the game doing post-game interviews. And there is, Ty Davis Price with his mom and dad.
Yeah.
It was just so awesome, man. He's got the number 3 here. When I think of number 3, I think of Kevin Falk.
Same.
And just what a great game. And, it motivated LSU fans, man. The weather was unbelievable. You could go home, get excited, go out and eat, celebrate being an LSU fan because the program's been up and down. We all know that. So, I mean, look, what happened yesterday, let me tell you. You remember a couple of weeks ago when Coach O had his press conference, right? His Monday deal, meeting with the media. And Coach O said then, somebody suggested, have you thought about bringing back Steve Engsby?
Right.
Put him in a booth. That's when the negotiations really were going on between him and Scott Woodward.
Yeah.
Because Coach O said, well, you know what? That may be a good idea, which he was separating himself. He knew his future then. What happened yesterday, the only thing that surprised me, I knew it was going to happen, but I thought it would be after the Ole Miss game. When you had the week off, you got 2 weeks. Now we're going to make the announcement. Now, 2 things. First off, Scott Woodward, the way he handled that press conference yesterday, I thought he was spot on. And everybody says, well, it's going to hurt recruiting. You know what ESPN Game Day's been talking about? How this LSU football program is in disarray.
Right.
You want to hear that another 5 games?
No.
No. So recruiting, if you come out right now, after a win, everybody's excited about LSU football. Kurt Herbstreit came out and said, you know what, congratulations to LSU. I apologize. I thought they quit on Coach O. Now, did the players get wind of what was going on, or was just the weather and the excitement, and they just played hard, or whatever? And of course, 4 pickoffs, that would help too. But I think it's a combination of everything. And Scott Woodward yesterday, the way he handled that, I thought it was good. LSU fans can now move on. They know there's going to be a new coach. O's going to be here the rest of the way, so you can pay tribute to him if you're an O fan. And the players now know what their future is. Hey, how many of those guys had surgery that didn't need surgery now? You fight through it. You have surgery at the end of the year.
Right.
If you're 6-0, you probably don't have surgery then. I'm not saying all the players, Brian, but a couple of them probably could have waited.
No, yeah, I'm with
but
you.
we have nothing to play for. Why risk my career? It ain't worth it. The effort right now. And, of course, there were reports that some of the players quit. And if you watched the Kentucky game in the second half, you could tell that some guys were thinking elsewhere.
Right.
For whatever reason. They didn't play hard in the second half against Kentucky. But the way Scott Woodward handled the press conference yesterday, I don't think there was any hidden agenda.
No.
He came out and said, we expected more. And for everybody out there to go, well, they went 5-5 last year, and you had COVID, all of that. Alabama still won a national championship. They beat Notre Dame. So it's, I know, but it's all relative. But look, here's the bottom line. If Coach O, and you could say fair or unfair, his off-the-field transgressions, all the stories, some of them are true, whatever percentage you want to put on that. But some of the things, on a coach's show, you can't tell a disgruntled caller who got by the screener, hey, we got a fishing hole down on the bottom. You can't do that stuff. You can't bring girlfriends to practice with their kids. There's certain things things you can't do. Now, Scott Woodward wants somebody, how many local kids in the state of Louisiana are now going to Alabama because what Alabama represents and what Alabama offers and the professionalism of Nick Saban, that's who you're going against.
Mm-hmm.
So, Coach O, and look, he is South Louisiana. He's got some personality. That's his DNA. But sometimes you got to limit the position you put yourself in. Look, the sexual misconduct, allegations allegedly that Coach O looked the other way. We look at Gloria Scott. Did she talk to him? Did she not talk to him about Darius Geis?
Right.
There's so many things out there. All right, the players march on campus. Wait for that. You may say it's fair, unfair, whatever, but the combination of all of that. And you're 9-8 since you beat Clemson in the national championship game, and 2 of those wins came this year against Central Michigan.
Yeah.
And ULM. So it's a
question,
combination of everything.
So my question, though, is if it's about what's on the field and the LSU standard of excellence on the field, then is everybody going to be moving forward judged through the same lens where if you have a pandemic year where literally everything is upside down, you're not given any kind of mulligan at all. If it's about the off-the-field stuff, now the conversation gets a lot more serious because why do they part ways mutually on good terms when you can fire the guy for cause and save your alumni or your boosters $17 million? You fire him for cause, you don't have payouts.
Yeah, but does LSU want to get into that long legal battle? They still facing a Title IX, Will Wade, everything going on.
It helps you with Title IX.
Scott Woodward, I got my money together, and let me tell you, if you think Scott Woodward yesterday, when he said that, now the coaching search began, oh, no, that coaching search began weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you and I both know that.
It totally did.
When you get Peterson to leave Boise State to go to Washington, right?
Yeah.
How many jobs he passed up? Okay, then now you got James Franklin being mentioned. You got Luke Finkel. One's 49, one's 48. You know what Finkel's making at Cincinnati?
What?
$3.3 million. You're going to triple his salary. He's got 6 kids. He was born in Columbus, and he went to Ohio State. Oh, you got James Franklin. Both of those guys, they have nothing in their background besides what happened on the field. Franklin's making 5.5. So money will never be an issue. Look, LSU's fan base, their alums, when it comes down to football, they'll find the money. And the way Scott Woodward handled it yesterday, good. LSU can now move on. Coach O's going to get $5 million in December, and we just move on and what's best for LSU. And that's what Scott Woodward has always believed in. So good for him, and I'm glad they got it out the way yesterday. And Coach O, he's going to have enough money in the bank to do whatever he wants to do.
Absolutely he is. He is Richard Condon. You normally catch him down the hall. Not today, but normally catch him down the hall on Eagle 94.1. Appreciate you, brother.
Anytime.
Yeah.
You good? I feel bad for you, dude.
You want me to kill him?
Yeah, please. seconds.
Talk 173. Wonderful. We're going to be going live in about a minute or two, and we'll get you on. The segment would be ending at about 9:59, a little bit before 7.
6:59.
6:59. I'm sorry? Yes. All right, please hold. Katie, you know outside.
Wait, what just happened? I don't know. .652 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Thanks again to Richard Condon for hopping on board to talk a little bit about Ed Ogeron being on his way out. He's going to play out the string, though, which could prove to be dangerous. We'll worry about that when we get to it, though. Right now, want to shift gears, talk a little bit about social isolation amidst the pandemic, before the pandemic, and now where we're at currently. I don't want to say after the pandemic, but this current state of flux that we're in. Even before the pandemic, nearly 1 in 4 older adults were socially isolated due to factors like physical isolation due to lack of transportation or mobility issues, health impacts like depression or cognitive decline, the loss of job or retirement, and or the loss of a spouse. How bad is it in Louisiana, and how do we deal with it? Well, the president of the American Association for Retired Persons, AARP, Lisa Marsh Ryerson, joins us right now to talk about that. Good morning, Lisa. How are you?
Hey, Brian. I'm well. How are you doing down in Baton Rouge?
Doing very, very well on this brisk Monday morning, to say the least.
Yeah,
very, very much appreciated colder as well. So how bad is it for seniors in Louisiana?
Well, Brian, I appreciate your intro because you really hit on all of the risk factors and underscore.
Lisa? Lisa, you there? Dropping her back on hold. Check and see if she's there. If not, just hang up and we'll get... Lisa, if you can hear me, just reconnect. Okay. Cool. And there she is now. Lisa, welcome back. Sorry about that. You bottomed out for a second there. You were...
I'm sorry about that, Brian. I really am sorry about it. But I think you and I at that point were talking about what's happening around social isolation in Louisiana for sure. And wanted to let you know that isolation, as it is across the nation, is on the rise in your region for a variety of reasons that you highlighted. Older adults who are struggling with low income, who are living on their own, who are really just suffering. These continue to be extraordinary times, and we do know from our research that in addition to social isolation, many older adults are really seeing an increase in anxiety and depression, and they need our help. So in your area, in general, there's pretty significant risk. When you think about residents in St. Mary's Parish, they have about a 74% chance of being socially isolated, 65% in Assumption and St. Helena. And the highest is 88%. And Brian, help me out here because names are important. Is it Pointe Coupé?
Pointe Coupé.
Parish?
Yeah, Pointe Coupé.
Yep, Pointe Coupé. 88% risk for residents who are 65 and older. And as I said, those reasons are because of living alone, loss of a loved one, living with chronic illness or with a disability, or not having access to transportation and other resources that community members need. I think what's so important, Brian, is that this map, which really relies on an aggregation of data, helps organizations, whether they're community-based organizations or healthcare organizations, understand where in Louisiana there is heightened risk and where they need to deploy, really actively develop tools and solutions to address this growing isolation among older adults, because the health impact, Brian, is extreme for those who are suffering. The prolonged isolation, Brian, is worse for our health than obesity and is the health equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
What goes into this risk score, though? Like, what determines isolation? Because, I mean, is it some folks just want to be left alone? This is so much deeper than that.
Oh, Brian, again, you could be a spokesperson with us because you understand it. So isolation and loneliness are really different. Loneliness is how you or I view our own situation. Do we think we have a network that we can count on? But isolation is objective. There are measurable factors, which is why this risk map is helpful for the parishes in your area, because it means that people can come together and build solutions. So the measurements are, do you have a reliable social network, individuals who you can count on? You can give them a call and let them know how you're doing and what your needs are. But as importantly is that you can rely on social support resources. Do you have access to public transportation? Do you have access to affordable, nutritious food, for example, in your area? But we put together factors for the individual and look at whether or not someone is living alone, whether or not they've had a loss of friends or loved ones. And as you and I know, during this pandemic, that's the case for so many people. Are the older adults in these areas living with chronic illness or with cognitive decline? Have they lost their jobs? All of those factors combined increase risk in a region for older adults to have social isolation.
Got about 2 minutes left with Lisa Marsh Ryerson, the president of AARP, talking about social isolation within our senior citizen community. Lisa, a lot of this hits me by surprise because Louisiana is renowned for having the largest number of citizens who basically live where they were born. We stay home, we take care of family. By nature, we do that. So comparatively speaking, how do we stack up with other states?
Well, you know, there's a risk range, I would tell you, Brian, in all states. So I would want you all to know in Louisiana that the risk is on the rise in every state for older adults. What I think you'll find, Brian, and you'll find given the parishes that you and I have talked about, is that even when one is born and raised and stays in community, that can be a protective factor. You're right, Brian. You may know more people then. You have your families and friends around. But are you, because of loss of job, living with low income, which really puts people at risk because they then don't have the resources to access the community support that they need? And then, Brian, I would also say the risk is heightened right now because in these ongoing extraordinary times where all adults over 18 are letting us know that they have an increase in anxiety, an increase in depression, so many people have been struggling. It really is incumbent upon us as family members or good neighbors to, take a pause during our day and say, even due to our own struggles, have we really taken the time to reach out to our older family members or neighbors?
Got 30 seconds left. Where can folks go to learn more?
I want everyone who's listening to head to connect2effect.org, where you can learn about risk factors, put in your zip code, and be connected to resources right in your own neighborhood. Connect2effect.org.
Connect2effect.org. The link will be when we post this on demand. Lisa Marsh Ryerson, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks, Brian. Have a good day.
You too. Here comes the CBS World News Roundup. It works. Moscona? Calling it, I'm sure.
When did he make the full transition? When did he shave his head?
What? Oh, I don't know. As long as I've known him. Actually, I don't know. I don't know that I've ever actually paid attention. Oh, fuck.
Almost all his pictures is him with hair.
Oh. Morning, Van. What? Muya. Wait, what in Muya? 7:06, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Hour 2 of Mornings with Brian Haldane coming your way right now. Thanks again to Richard Condon for hopping on board last hour. Talk a little bit about the Ed Ogeron situation. That conversation will continue throughout the show this morning. Also, thanks to Lisa Marsh Ryerson from AARP. Talk about senior isolation. It is on the rise, and Louisiana is not exempt from it. This hour, Matt Moscona, host of After Further Review on 104.5, 104.9 ESPN, is going to join me in our next segment to talk about Ed Ogeron and LSU parting ways. Then at 7:35, Stephen Wagasback from LABI hops on the hotline as well. We've got a lot of ground to cover with Stephen, not the least of which proposed tax reform. There are 2 constitutional amendments on the ballot Saturday. Ball's in our court to get centralized sales tax collection done and a lower overall income tax rate. Right now, though, time for top stories and trending. Let's get it. Louisiana's Transportation Department is promising that 2 new trees will be planted for each one that's cut down to widen I-10 in Baton Rouge. Construction on a new College Drive exit ramp near the 10-12 split will begin by the end of October. The $52 billion project is expected to be completed late next year. Department of Transportation Development said it will have to remove trees along the interchange to do the work. New trees will be planted by the nonprofit organization Baton Rouge Green, which has been planting and maintaining trees in green spaces around the capital city for decades, according to the Transportation Department. Dozens of folks gathered Saturday afternoon for the One Love, One Fight event held at Elevate Church of Baton Rouge. Quote, one love means all of us come together. One fight means that if all of us come together, we could fight all this evil away. Event organizer Vincent Hutchinson Jr. said. Hutchinson, who is a police officer in New Roads, organized the event to remember his own son, 2-year-old Azaria Christian Thomas, who was killed in October of last year. That 2-year-old was at his mother's house on West Upland Avenue in Baton Rouge when police said a 42-year-old, Kendrick Miles, fired gunshots into the house. Investigators said Miles went on a rampage during the night, shooting and wounding 2 men at separate locations and kidnapping a 9-year-old boy. A 35-year-old man died in a shooting on West Brookstown Drive Friday night. Baton Rouge police said Battle Rack Scatter was killed, or Battle Rack Scatter Jr., excuse me. Battle Rack Scatter Jr. That means a dude was named Battle Rack Scatter, had a son, and said, let's do it again. Awesome name aside, he's sadly gone. He was killed around 10:50. Scatter was found on the corner of West Brookstown and Prescott Road. Police did not appear to have any suspects, and there were no arrests. That's such a cool name, though. A 25-year-old man was found dead in the parking lot of Lake Sherwood Mall at the corner of Sherwood and Coursey late Saturday. Police said Jamal Dunn of Donaldsonville was killed. Dunn was killed during a shooting in the parking lot, also around 10:30 p.m. It's a busy event. There's a busy event at the bar venue in the shopping center. Oh, wait, that's where Quarters is at, isn't it? Corner of Sherwood and Coursey? Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, is it no suspects nor motives in this case just yet. Of course, our number one story, as it will remain as such throughout the day, probably throughout the week. LSU Athletics and head football coach Ed Ogeron have agreed to part ways, but it'll cost LSU the full amount of Ogeron's buyout. LSU will pay Coach O his fully guaranteed amount of money as both sides have agreed that he will be removed without cause. Ogeron is set to receive $16.8 million from LSU. As a part of their agreement, LSU will pay that amount over the course of the next 4 years. That's a look at your top stories. Here's a look at what's trending this morning. Alligators are back. Once endangered alligators are thriving in the wild, so Louisiana authorities are proposing a deep cut in the percentage that farmers must return to marshes where their eggs were laid. The commission is taking comments until January 4th on a proposal to cut the rate from 10% down to 5%. Alligators don't breed well in captivity, so farmers are allowed to collect eggs from nests as long as they return a percentage to the same area as youngsters big enough to foil predators and other people, and much bigger alligators as well. About 1.2 million have been returned since alligator farming was approved in 1986. Jeb Linscomb, head of the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, said this Thursday. He said the return percentage was first set at 17%, based on estimates that about 83% die in the egg or before they're full foot long. A wild hatched alligator that size would be about 4 years old, but readily available food lets farmed alligators grow much faster. Those are your top stories and trending. We're due up for a break here in just a minute. Before we take that break, Friday, I got over by Mooyah. It was National Mushroom Day, so I went and grabbed my mushroom Swiss burger. Oh, so thrilled to do this. Love getting over by Mooyah. I went to the Bluebonnet location, Bluebonnet and Highland. Now, same great burgers, same great ingredients, same great service, also available at the Segan Lane location. I went mushroom Swiss this time around. Also, instead of going with the sweet potato fries, I went with chips. Underrated choice on the menu. And the number of choices on the menu are worth looking at. I mean, you take a look up and down that menu, you're going to find a dozen burgers that are made to order, or you can build your own. And I can't emphasize that enough. Build your own burger. Get it to your liking. Fresh ingredients, fresh beef, freshly baked potato buns, top-notch service, both locations. Highland at Bluebonnet at Highland, and Segan Lane just north of Industrialplex for Mooyah burgers, fries, and shakes. Oh no. Oh no. Can you kill my mic to take down his number? $7:15 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Time to welcome in from our sister station, 104.5, 104.9 ESPN Radio, Matt Moscona. Matt, how stacked up is your call sheet today?
Well, you're number 2 and number 3 following here in about another 15 minutes, and then pretty much like that for the rest of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you needed like a booking agent today.
Most days, but yes, today would be especially helpful.
I would think so. Hey, before we get to Ed Ogeron, which I know I'm going to push the lead back a little bit, Saturday was incredible. I mean, just the weather, the crowd, the game itself, everything about it was just fantastic. How does LSU come to life like that for a day game?
Yeah, I didn't see it coming, like I think most people.
Same.
Sometimes you need something good to happen, and then it can spark that momentum, and sometimes the opposite can be true. And I think every time every time Florida punched, LSU counterpunched. They tied it twice in the second half at 35, then again at 42. And both times LSU immediately responded and took the lead back. So it was a really it was a fun game. I mean, you gave up 42 points and 500 yards of offense, but Florida turned it over 4 times. So you're able to steal a win. And then as far as the crowd, man, I was not in the stadium because of pre- and post-game obligations, but I would imagine the 60,000 or so that actually showed up are the 60,000 super diehards that are going to go and yell either way and created an awesome atmosphere. So hats off to them.
Campus was sleepy at 7 and wide awake at 8. I mean, and it only progressed from there. Ty Davis-Price breaks a record on Saturday. How did the run game just explode the way it did?
Man, I think a big part of it, Brian, is, well, obviously you've gotten some guys healthy on the offensive line, which hasn't been the case since the opener against UCLA. I think they're coming into their own under their new coach, Brad Davis. But realistically, I mean, it was the single best rushing performance in the history of LSU, and this was a team that couldn't run it for 20 yards against McNeese. Right. So there is some how in the world did that happen? Like, I don't know how you consistently do that. I mean, if you want me to go super technical, I think Gene Chiswick did an awesome job breaking this down on SEC Final on the SC Network. LSU basically started running a lot of counter plays, which you pull the guard and the tackle. And the other part of it, too, is you'll love this. I think Jack Mashburn was a big part of it.
That's all I needed you to say. That was it. That was all you needed to say.
No, I got it. I mean, it's about time St. Paul's finally had a walk-on who could actually get on the field, because we know there's no scholarship players that'll ever show up at LSU or anywhere else of relevance. But
we don't get wins, man. Give me this one. You can't just let it. No, but you got to go on the back end.
Well, you had to interject your St. Paul's nonsense. But I do think that matters. I mean, LSU hasn't really – they used him as like an H-back, a fullback, a blocking tight end. LSU hasn't really had that. Well, not really. They just haven't had that in this offense. So they put an extra blocker on the field. They ran some blocking schemes that better suited their offensive linemen and had a really great day.
All right. That's the game itself. Now to the real action, and that's what happened Saturday. How dialed in were you on how this was playing out Saturday from the end of the game until pen went to paper?
So it went well before Saturday, and you could sort of Ed Ogeron actually kind of let it slip in the press conference Sunday night, where he basically knew after Kentucky. And I was actually a little surprised they didn't announce this last week, but apparently dotting some I's, crossing some T's, pushed it to yesterday. But really, it was late in the week. It was about Thursday, and then Friday is whenever it all started leaking that Ed was going to be done and he was going to finish the season. So, he went into that game coaching knowing he was done. I think his players went into that game knowing that he was done. Staff, certainly. I mean, it was just too loud. Everybody knew. So there was some question, hey, could the win maybe delay the announcement? But clearly that didn't happen. I mean, but at this point, Scott Woodward and William Tate, like, that decision had been made, and they were sticking to it. So it was best at that point to rip the Band-Aid off and proceed.
Okay, how much of this is going to be perceived through the lens of on-field performance, and how much of this is going to be about allegations off the field?
Him being gone?
Yeah.
I think the off-field stuff, which we can get into to whatever degree you want, exacerbates the problems on field. Meaning, if you were still cruising and you were in contention, you can forgive some of the off-field stuff. But realistically, it's the result on the field, and the results on the field have basically been put in motion by Ed Ogeron's poor decisions in coaching hires, not spending enough time with his program, considering some of his extracurriculars. He lost this locker room last year with the social justice marches and the way he handled that. A lot of which is now starting to be documented and spoken about publicly because we've reached the end. Right. So the answer is there is no easy answer. It's all hand in hand. if there wasn't a Title IX lawsuit and everything else going on, maybe he gets a little more of a grace period to fix it. But you can't keep whiffing on coaches paying $1 million assistant buyouts while having the public embarrassments away from the field, while losing your locker room, and then being 9-8 since the championship. It's too much of an avalanche going against him that there's not enough reason to believe this ship is going to get righted.
It seems like a short window following the greatest season in the history of college football when you consider that it was the pandemic year. I mean, everything was upside down. Does that not factor into it?
It shouldn't, because everybody dealt with it. And I think Ed Ogeron's his single biggest flaw, like if you had asked me, what's the genesis of all the problems? It's that he is a great motivator, energy guy when things are going good, but in times of high stress, anxiety, when things aren't going well, I think he devolves. I think it's why he was so bad at Ole Miss. I think it's why you look back in 2017, whenever he and Matt Canada were like fighting at practice. You look through everything that happened in 2020 with the pandemic and the social justice march. Like, his inability to manage stressful situations led to this. And when you're the head coach at LSU, you're going to have a lot of stressful situations. There weren't many in 2019 because, boy, that was a lot of fun. But it's, I think, naive to think that he's going to know how to fix it. He doesn't. It's clear he does not know what he's looking for in identifying assistant coaches. He has mismanaged this roster to the point where you have gaping holes at spots like offensive line and linebacker, and he's lost a bunch of his locker room. I mean, and never got it back after last year. So there was just no reason to believe that in any short order he was going to be able to fix it. And so if you're Scott Woodward, you have to realize at what point do you have to make the decision to move along, because you can't afford to continue losing. And that's the position they got into here.
If you've got that much volatility when his back's against the wall, why keep him on for 5 more games?
Well, it's a good question. I want to remind people that Scott Woodward followed this model at Washington. So he had Tyrone Willingham there. They started 0-7 in 2008. They made the announcement Willingham would not return, but would finish the season. So there's a couple of reasons here why. Number one, you don't have an obvious interim coach. When Les was fired, Ed had been a head coach and he had been an interim coach. And so it was a very natural transition just to slide him up because he had done it before. There's nobody on LSU staff that has any relevant experience like that. That's one. Two, by announcing now, it provides LSU the cover to be transparent in a coaching search. LSU is looking for a head coach. So Scott Woodward can now start to have conversations with agents and representatives of coaches to gauge interest, and he doesn't have to do so secretly. And then there's the recruiting aspect of it, where now you can be transparent with recruits that aren't wondering, is Ed Ogeron going to be back? And other, teams' negative recruiting, you don't know if that staff's going to be there, sort of thing. Well, now you do. You know Ed Ogeron's not going to be back. You know it's going to be a new regime, and that allows some transparency for this recruiting class to try to keep them in place. So for a lot of reasons, it does make sense why you would do it now as opposed to waiting.
So since he's finishing out the season and he's not being quote unquote fired for cause, I got to go back around to it. I want to be very delicate about this because a lot is hearsay and a lot is accusation, and I don't know how much can be proven. But why not fire him for cause?
Those conversations were definitely had, and I don't mind saying that it was not unanimous to pay Ed Ogeron his buyout. But whenever you read through some of what's already been written, and I'm going to try to say this delicately, things around that program have gotten toxic because Ed is not a great leader in times of stress. And I think it's one of those things where you say, play nice, finish the season, we'll pay your full buyout. Because the counter to that is, if you try to fire Ed Ogeron for cause, you are going to be in a fight because he's going to try to get his money.
Yeah.
And if he fights, then you're going to court, and then you're talking about depositions and testifying under oath, and you're talking about disclosure. And do you really want a public fight with information coming out about timeline violations and potential NCAA violations and who else might be involved? And now you're talking about a big, messy thing that could have far-reaching effects. So it's tough to stroke that check, but I think you have to consider what would be the collateral damage of going through a public trial, a public legal battle over a buyout to save money, especially when you have the boosters ready to write the checks.
Matt Moscona, host of After Further Review, is our guest. We're talking a little bit about Ed Ogeron's departure or soon-to-be departure from LSU. I guess the next question is who's next? The search is underway now. Who's next at LSU?
So after the UCLA loss, these wheels got set in motion hyperspeed. Buyout money was starting to be collected, and you started to hear names. I will tell you every name that I have heard from someone at LSU. Not what fans want to see or hear or hope or what makes sense. I will give you names that I have been told.
Okay.
Initially, Lane Kiffin, Bill O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
A few weeks later, I was also told James Franklin and Luke Fickell. And here in the last week to 10 days, Mel Tucker's name has popped up. He's the coach at Michigan State. I will tell you this. LSU has a new system president, William Tate. And it is abundantly clear to me that President Tate has inserted himself into all of these matters, from firing Ogeron, the procedure of that, and who the next coach is going to be. And I think many people know that President Tate is the first black president of the LSU system.
Yes.
And it has been conveyed to me that he has a strong desire to make this a legacy hire, to bring the first minority football coach to LSU. Now, I think it should be obvious to all. That cannot be the only criteria, because then you limit potentially great candidates. But I think that is something that is going to be very much involved in this search, and I think is why you're hearing names like James Franklin and Mel Tucker, who, by the way, are phenomenal football coaches, and I think either would do wonderfully here. James Franklin would actually be my number one choice if I got to pick.
Same.
But I would just say file that away, because as much confidence as people have in Scott Woodward, and I certainly do, it does not seem to me like he has full autonomy to do this and do whatever it is that he wants to do.
Well, the last time we got a coach from Michigan State, it worked out pretty well.
Yes, it did.
Less than 60 seconds to go. What's next for Ed Ogeron? Is he done coaching forever, or are we going to see him resurface somewhere?
He said yesterday that he'll sit out for the year, which falls in line with what I heard. I've actually been told that he may want to do TV. Imagine that. But maybe Ed does TV for a year, but does ultimately get back into coaching. I think that's probably his path. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario where Ed Ogeron gets a third chance to be a head coach. But could he go join a staff somewhere as a defensive line coach and recruiting coordinator, the role he had under Les Miles? Yeah. Absolutely. If all he wants to do is coach ball, he will have those opportunities in 2022 and beyond.
You will catch him from 3 to 6 this afternoon on After Further Review. At that point, he will feel very repetitive. He is.
I already do.
I'm only the second one. He is Matt Moscona. Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for hopping on.
All right, Brian.
All right, talk to you later. Hey, you didn't fire me. Coming up on 7:31 at Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Quick break for news, traffic, weather. When we come back, let's talk with Stephen Wagasback from LABI, the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. That's next. Oh, my God. Did you hear that? Hey, YouTube, CBS is reporting Colin Powell died of COVID-19. Who did? Colin Powell. Yep, there it is right there. Yeah. Oh, by the way, for those that don't know, because I keep forgetting it's been like 20 some odd years since he got here. The last coach we got from Michigan State was Nick Saban.
See, I didn't know that, and I figured that's what y'all were referring
Yeah.
to. Talk 107.3.
It's okay.
Stephen, how are you? Doing well, thank you. We're going to be going live in a couple minutes and we'll get you on. Awesome. Please hold.
All right. That was good. Am I frozen?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Let me see what he wants to cover today. Yo! What do you want to talk about today? How was the tailgate Saturday? I got by. I saw Jason and I saw Jim Patterson. I saw Jason Dickwer and Jim Patterson. Dude, I had to get back over. My countdown to airtime starts at 8:30. So I was blasted out by 10 after 8. That's well, not today. I'm not. I'm friggin' dying. I threw my back out last night and I'm like crying like a little bitch all morning long. It's I do. I have two of them in my lower back, and I've had them for well over a decade, and they're not getting better. Say again? .738 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Thanks again to Matt Moscona for hopping on board, talking about Coach O. Shifting gears right now, heading over to the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. Actually, we're not heading to headquarters. We're heading up the road as the Constitutional Amendment Roadshow continues. Stephen Wagasback, welcome back. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Brian. How you doing today, man?
Doing very well. Before we dive into the real meat of the matter with the constitutional amendments, I got to rewind the clock back to Saturday. LABI threw a little tailgate before the game. Could y'all have ordered up a more electric atmosphere?
It was a Chamber of Commerce weather day Saturday morning, man. I tell you, it was gorgeous. It was if you're going to have an 11 a.m. kickoff in Death Valley, that's how you want to do it. Mm-hmm. And it was beautiful, man. We had a good turnout, and actually, I thought campus was pretty lively, all things considered, Saturday morning. I was expecting kind of a dud of a crowd, but man, Tiger Nation showed up. I think that weather inspired them to get out the house and get their game on. And the stadium had a great atmosphere. The game was awesome. And then obviously with the big news coming throughout the weekend, I think if you're a Tiger fan, there was a lot to enjoy this weekend. There's a lot to look forward to going forward. I think if you look at how the administration and O handled yesterday, in my opinion, it's one of the best ways to handle a transition. Both the administration and O talking about how much they love LSU, how they want this to be a good transition. It gives Woodward plenty of green space to go out and do a robust search. And you're coming off a win against the Gators, which, you know, absent Alabama, beating Florida, to me, is always the best thing of any year. So, I mean, this weekend couldn't have gone better, weather-wise, LSU-wise, and future Tiger-wise.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about the open-endedness of riding out the string. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, I think the challenge you have with that, and look, I hear you, but you always have to look at, like, okay, what's the other option? You know, the other option is you promote a coordinator, which they're brand new. I don't think there's one ready to run, you know, the entire program. Mm-hmm. Or you leave Orgeron twisting in the wind. You force Woodward to kind of conduct a secret search in the shadows that he has to deny. I think it's a very complicated situation, and so the way they handled it, Orgeron walks away with his head held high and his wallet thick. LSU walks away with the ability to do a 5-month open public search and kind of say we're going to look around the world for the best candidate. In a complicated situation, you know, it is what it is. And, oh, by the way, these players now have something to play for, I think. I mean, instead of, like, sitting around wondering what the latest gossip's going to be about their future,
right? They
know. They're auditioning for the new coach, or they're going to go and do whatever it takes to send their guy off with a good storyline. So I think considering the circumstances, that's as good as you could ask for.
So, I hear you. It's just such a weird spot. Let's move on to some business. Those who are in favor of Constitutional Amendment 1 got some really, really good news recently, as New Orleans Mayor LaToya has come out to say she's completely against it, which to me tells me 63 other parishes are about to align to hammer this thing home.
Well said, Brian.
Thank you.
Said.
Thank
you. I think that's right. But I tell you, the other thing, I got to be honest with you, it's really disappointing. I mean, there was a really big bipartisan group that worked for the better part of the last 2 years. Speaker did a really good job of kind of bringing everyone to the table. The local government associations were all there. The business community was all there. Republicans and Democrats in the legislature were all there. Everyone rolled their sleeves and went to work. And 2 years later, what you have is a broadly supported bill, bipartisan votes, going to the ballot that makes total sense. There's really no objective reason to oppose it. And then, kind of in the 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, right before we go to the ballot, the mayor of New Orleans comes out and says, you know what, I think I'm going to start opposing it now. And while you're right, there's probably some good and bad of that. It is frustrating because everyone tried really hard to work with everyone. She had plenty of time throughout the last 2 years to raise objections and, quite frankly, didn't do it. And so I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's right. And I think especially when you look at the last couple of years, the federal government has dumped plenty of dollars all across this country during the pandemic. A lot of it has went to state and local government. State and local government has been fed like kings with federal stimulus money and dollars money they don't even know how to spend. Yet Main Street businesses, small businesses on Main Street have scratched and clawed and are still struggling to keep their head above water. Those are the ones that didn't get the safety net that government got during the pandemic response. And what's the thanks New Orleans small businesses get? At the last minute, the rug gets pulled out from underneath them, by their leader, and they're left hanging out to dry. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. If you're a small business in New Orleans and you're like, all right, finally, economy's come back, finally tourism's come back, and hey, we get this cool thing going to the ballot. It's going to make it much easier for me to pay my taxes, take away some of the regulation and red tape. This could be a win-win for me. Now you have your mayor coming out and saying, not so fast, I'm gonna fight you on this. So it's really frustrating for me from that sense. The good news, if there is any, is you're right. There's a lot of other parts of the state that will see that as a sign that this is a good thing to do. So, hopefully we can get the vote done. And look, hopefully we can keep talking to Mayor Cantrell and make her realize that, whatever rationale she's throwing around can easily be addressed. Hope we can make her realize that a healthy New Orleans economy that keeps small businesses afloat is good for her, is good for her city, is good for that city reaching its potential, and hopefully we can get her to change her mind.
Yeah, good luck with that. I'm banking on the 63-1 win before before you.
No, I hear you, man, but you got to go glass half full.
I know,
and I think it really does a service to what the speaker tried to do. He brought everyone together, Republicans, Democrats. He said, "Look, no one's going to get the perfect bill," and I really feel bad for him for the most part because he worked really hard to make it a bipartisan effort, and it was, and it still is. And for her to come in at the last minute, really, spits in the face of that whole effort, I don't think that's the right approach.
Speaking of the other 63 parishes, you're on the road right now. The Constitutional Amendment road show continues. Where you headed, and what's been the response thus far?
On the road again, baby. Today I'm heading up to Monroe and West Monroe, be hanging out there. Then tomorrow I'll be in Minden and then Union Parish and then a couple other little quick stops before I head back tomorrow night. And going up to talk about Constitutional Amendment 1 and 2, trying to remind folks that's coming up on the ballot November 13th and that this is the right thing to do if you want more jobs and lower taxes. And, we've been doing this a lot the last couple of weeks, and the response has been phenomenal. I mean, when you go and talk to folks and explain why it makes so much sense to make it easier to pay taxes and take away some of the regulation red tape for small business, why it's so much easier to lower income taxes and make us more competitive with other states. People get it when you talk to them. The biggest challenge we have is it's going to be a low turnout race. There's not a lot of things on the ballot. We're hearing some predictions that the turnout might be as low as 8-9%. And so when you got that few people turning out, we're going to do whatever we can to kind of remind folks to go vote, remind folks that it's important to get out there. And that's why we're going around the state so much, preaching the gospel on tax reform and why it's important to vote. But, look, we've had great response everywhere. And quite frankly, I expect to get the same response over the next 2 days up in North Louisiana because this truly is a no-brainer. If you want more jobs, lower taxes, if you want Louisiana to be economically competitive with other states in the South, you got to go out on November 13th, pass Amendment 1 and 2, and then use that success to encourage the legislature to do more tax reform so in the next couple of years we can really hit the ground running and start taking our place in the economic rankings that we deserve.
Heading into Monroe, Louisiana, coming off a UL Monroe, 31-28 win over Liberty over the weekend. Liberty, by the way,
you can't stop the Warhawks, man.
Bro, they look strong. 53-yard field goal, I think, won it when it was all said and done. I have to do a scoreboard update during the LSU broadcast. I don't pay attention to the Warhawks on a
I was
regular
about to say, I was
basis.
pretty impressed with your ULM expertise there. You know who would love that is, I don't know if you've met yet Monroe's Mayor Friday Ellis, but that guy is a rock star. He is awesome, and a big ULM guy there. He would love to hear you preaching the gospel down here on that.
Oh, no, I like following them. Sadly, they've been a little disappointing, but beating Liberty was kind of a big deal over the weekend, so they're going to be hyped up about that. Outside of the road show, Congress is about to get back at it. Am I wrong for being cynical in this regard when it comes to putting together an infrastructure bill?
You're not wrong, big guy. You're not wrong. It's hard to know. I mean, it's kind of like a soap opera at this point. All the days of our lives, or as the world turns, or a mixture of both. But like, what's going to happen this week? What is you got Pelosi and Schumer, who are both dealing with complicated factions on the Democrat side. You got most Republicans who are very, and I think rightfully so, skeptical of anything coming out that can be a good deal for America. That $3.5 trillion stimulus bill is what they're trying to, pare down some. But I don't see how you can fix it. You just can't put a prom dress on that big and make it look good. It's just not going to happen. And so the challenge is, if they spend that, if they find some way to pass another $2 trillion maybe as a compromise.
Yeah.
If you look at what's going on right now with inflation, with supply chain disruption, with the challenge of getting people to go back to work, our economy has some serious holes in the boat, man. And I think more spending is the last thing you should do to try to fill them up. And so that's what Congress is looking at. And so, look, it's a shame to say, with all the hard work that's been done to try to find some compromise on an infrastructure package, if Congress is going to continue to just tragically tie those two together, well, then they both need to sink, because the inflationary pressures we feel in our economy cannot withstand another stimulus spending bill that's just going to airbomb cash on areas that quite frankly, we can't sustain it because it'll just drive up costs so much.
He is Stephen Wagasback, president of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. You enjoyed Duck Dynasty country, sir.
Amen. And, hey, go Tigers. The future is bright, baby. It's going to be a good day in Death Valley once again real soon.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin. We're going up to see Lane Kiffin. If you're making the trip, leave your golf balls at home.
All right, I'll do that.
All right. Talk to you soon, Stephen.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Coming up on 750 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. You're going to check your money now. Check traffic. When we come back, it'll be time for the Outside In right here on Talk 107.3. I guess I should explain that joke on the way back in.
Real quick, during that interview, 2 seconds got cut out. I have the page on YouTube, where it's supposed to be. Am I able to do that, right now, while all this stuff is going on?
I wouldn't. I'd concentrate on the show right now. What 2 seconds? Was it an important 2 seconds?
It was talking about Speaker Pelosi did a really good job on cut 2 seconds. If you want to
Don't sweat it. No, it's fine. I got mattress coming right now. Oh, I meant to. What else do I have today after the show? Because I can't do anything. Lots of stuff.
By the way, this day in history, it's relatively small amount of stuff.
What?
I don't have like a lot.
It's fine. .755 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Thanks again to Stephen Wagasback for hopping on board from LABI. On the road up to Fun Row, Louisiana, to carry on the message about Constitutional Amendment number 1, centralized sales tax collections. We learned about this throughout the legislative process, and we're going to learn a lot more about it in this last month leading up to Election Day, which is actually less than a month away, November 13th. Hey, every day I tell you about the fantastic service and the wonderful deals over at the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. Yes, you're going to pay the best price around. But I don't often talk to you about the number of great name brands they've got going on or they got for sale at the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. Yeah, the deals tend to trump everything. For example, a couple of those deals. Right now, you can get an organic luxury latex hybrid mattress. That would be the Twin XL for under $1,000. You can get the Twin for $900. Organic luxury latex hybrid full, $1,099. All of these prices are a minimum of $300 off their normal suggested retail. And there's a ton more. When you're talking Sealy Posturepedic, when you're talking, is it, it's Twins and Stern, I believe is the name of it. Something in Stern. Anyway, it's just the tip of the iceberg. You got to swing by 4065 Florida Boulevard, 4065 Florida Boulevard in Mid-City, or 18181 Jefferson Highway. That's the corner of Jefferson and Hoosier 2 in the southeastern corner of the parish. Both locations of Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet have the same great prices, same great selection, same great service at the Baton Rouge Mattress Outlet. Time for the outside in. Let's get it.
locations and extended hours to fit your needs. BRPT Lake has got you covered. Schedule online now at brptlake.com. The outside in is coming your way now. Gotta get out of this town. Yeah, and go where? Where are we gonna go?
Starting off in Lincoln Parish, there's been a second shooting incident in a week at Grambling State University. One person died, several others were injured after an on-campus shooting at Grambling's quad early yesterday morning. The university said the person who died was not an enrolled student. Only one of the victims was a student who suffered non-life-threatening injuries. One person was killed and 3 others were hurt back on Wednesday as well at a shooting on Grambling's campus. State police are still looking for a suspect. By the way, Sunday's shooting meant they canceled all of the Sunday homecoming events and today's classes as well. Next stop, Livingston Parish, where an arrest was made in connection with a deadly wreck over the summer. On Friday, Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office said Kelly Lemoyne was arrested on charges related to the July 18th crash on the Killian Bridge. Investigators determined Lemoyne lost control of her vehicle and crossed into the opposing lane. She struck another vehicle. The driver of that vehicle, 34-year-old Brandy Costello, was killed in the crash. Lemoyne was booked on charges of vehicular homicide, reckless operation, and driving under suspension. She has since been released on bond. In Acadia Parish, Crowley Police Chief Jimmy Broussard reports unfortunate incidents caused the early closure of the ride area of the International Rice Festival Friday evening. Yeah, he said incidents happened Friday night involving a number of juveniles that was causing a chaotic situation in the ride area, and they had to shut it down. Closing out Tangipahoa Parish, it was a heck of a return to Strawberry Stadium for the Southeastern Lions Saturday. Cole Kelly went 31 of 38 for 396 yards and 5 touchdowns. Southeastern beats Houston Baptist 61-24 on Saturday. They will head up to Natchitoches to take on Northwestern State this coming weekend. That is the Outside In, presented by brptlake.com. Let's go ahead and get you to CBS News. Then we're right back at it for Hour 3 on Talk 107.3. Why does everybody keep congratulating me on my work anniversary? Is it? I didn't think it was my work anniversary.
It's Dr. Lauren
Zadaran, yes. Which one do I need to do next? I just did Baton Rouge Mattress. Who was next? No. Big day for birthdays. Scusi. Yeah. All right, let me try to stand up again. Oh! It's all part of the Charlie's Dozen, and it's only at Shawbills. All right, well.
We're starting off the week cool and dry. Make sure you layer up today. After starting off in the low 50s this morning, there'll be lots of sunshine and temperatures in the upper 70s this afternoon. Temperatures will be back down in the 50s tonight and to start off your Tuesday morning. Tuesday afternoon will be a touch warmer with temperatures in the low 80s. Some of the humidity will return on Wednesday and Thursday with a few showers too. Another cold front is set to pass later this week, likely only taking the humidity with it. Temperatures will have a similar trend into the weekend, upper 50s in the morning and low 80s in the afternoon.
806 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP Mornings with Brian Haldane rolling right along. We've got a busy third hour for you. Looking forward to all of this. Oh, by the way. So first of all, Medical Monday, which was recorded already, hooked up with Dr. Zadaran on Friday. Dr. Lauren Zadaran for Medical Monday. We're talking, she's a medical oncologist. It is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're talking about breast cancer all next segment with Dr. Lauren Zadaran. Normally, Medical Monday runs at 7:15 because of the nature of the Ed Ogeron announcement or the announcement about Ed Ogeron. I felt it was pertinent to talk LSU football there with Matt Moscona. So we got Medical Monday this hour. Also this hour, Fox News' Brett Baier has a new book out. Brett Baier's got a book out called To Rescue the Republic, Ulysses S. Grant, The Fragile Union, and the Crisis of 1876. How many parallels are we seeing between then and now? We'll talk with Brett Baier at the end of this hour. Hey, teasing a little bit about what's coming on later on in the week. You heard of the name Dr. Ian Smith? He is he was on the show The Doctors, and he's going to join us, record Thursday for Friday morning, and then on Friday, I'm not sure how it's going to play out for playback. It might have to wait till Monday. But on Friday, Jody Sweeten's going to join us we're going to do a bonus YouTube segment for that. If you're not watching us on YouTube, every once in a while, actually, Ian Smith can be bonus YouTube as well based off of the time frame. But if you're not watching us on YouTube, every once in a while after the show is over with, we've got bonus content that's just for YouTube. Jody Sweeten of Full House and Fuller House. And there's a new show coming up called Celebrity Exorcism. Obviously, there's a Halloween tie-in here. We'll be talking about that as well. But that's all later on in the week. That's Friday, actually, for Jody Sweeten. Much, much later on in the week. Right now, nope, not right now. 60 seconds from right now, Jake's going to have This Day in History. I do need to tell you about the folks over at Complete Collision Center. Look, do me a favor. Put a phone number in your phone right now. I'll give you a second. All right. You ready to record this? You ready to punch this in? 225-768-9898. 225-768-9898. That's the phone number for Complete Collision. I highly, highly recommend them for a number of different reasons. The first of which is their level of certifications is off the charts. More than a dozen major car manufacturers and the iCar Gold Class certification. The people who make the cars say Complete Collision knows how to fix the cars. Second big reason, they're willing to pick up the fight with your insurance company. The reason I need their number in your phone instead of an insurance company's number is because the insurance company has deals hammered out with some places that makes them the customer, not you. Complete Collision Center, you're in charge. You're the customer. 2 locations, Plank Road in Zachary or Perkins just east of Bluebonnet. That number one more time, 768-9898 for Complete Collision Center. Don't let who you choose to repair your vehicle be your second accident. Check out Complete Collision and CompleteCollision.com. All right, time for This Day in History. Let's get it.
All right, Brian, we're going to start things off in 1867.
Okay.
First things up, Alaska Purchase. U.S. takes formal possession of Alaska from Russia, having paid $7.2 million. I think that's pretty good value. Should have thrown
per acre, sure.
Yeah, I mean, we should have thrown in maybe like a first or second round pick, and that'd probably been a fair trade.
Absolutely.
1931, American gangster Al Capone convicted of tax evasion.
Yeah.
Alcatraz, Al Capone. I thought those related. They kind of are, but no name reference was necessary. 1967, Walt Disney's animated musical adaptation of the Jungle Book film is released.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I was surprised. 1967, it's some old films.
Yeah.
1974, Chicago Bull Nate Thurmond, I think, becomes first in NBA to complete a quadruple double, 22 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, and 12 blocks. I doubt that's actually the first one because they didn't record stats like that when Wilt and Bill Russell were playing.
Yeah.
But that's the first recorded quadruple double. 1992, 6.6 earthquake hits Colombia with no fatalities.
Oh, wow.
That's a shocker.
Okay.
2009, quarterback, yeah, you got that.
1977,
okay.
Reggie Jackson became Mr. October on this day. Yeah, this was it's a little older than you, Jake.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Why is he Mr. October?
So he's Mr. October. That was his nickname because he was just nails in the World Series. He hit 3 home runs, 3 consecutive home runs in Game 6 of the World Series, leading the Yankees to an 8-4 win over the Dodgers.
Very nice. We're going to go to 2009 now. Quarterback Tom Brady throws 5 second-quarter touchdowns against the Tennessee Titans, an NFL record for touchdown passes in 1 quarter.
Wasn't it a game like 59-0?
Probably. I mean, he threw 5 touchdowns in 1 quarter. I doubt those were answered back. But that's all the events that I have listed. Let's get to the birthdays. First up, we have Zac Efron turning 34. Shout out to High School Musical. Jean-Claude Van Damme, I know you appreciate this one, turns 61 on this day.
Really?
The action star himself. Mike Ditka, some of you may know him as the Chicago Bears head coach, part of that legendary team. I know him from Kicking and Screaming. Shout out to, Will Ferrell.
All right.
2006?
Ditka.
Something like that. But yes, he turns 82 on this day. You got any birthdays for me?
Oh, a ton.
Oh, let's hear them.
How about Martina Navratilova?
Bless you.
She's a tennis player.
Happy
Born on this
birthday
day
to
in
her.
1956. How about Brittany Griner? I don't know if this one's accurate or not because it was in my email, but not on my sports list. So Brittany Griner's in there. Lindsey Vaughn's in there as well.
Very nice.
And then Tommy the Hitman Hearns.
The Hitman.
And then Alex Cora.
Happy birthday to all those mentioned. As far as deaths, we have 2 to talk about. First one, Thomas Edison died on this day in 1931. Electricity. Anyways.
That was your takeaway.
Yes, electricity.
You just said electricity.
Hey.
And then left for a pregnant pause, like you were waiting for the weight of that to just carry the room.
Mm-hmm.
Electricity. Moving on.
Moving on. This is a sad one because this person died today, actually. Colin Powell died on this day. It was announced probably about an hour ago.
Thereabouts.
But yes, that has happened. Rest in peace, too.
All right, so I'm not going to make fun of you here, but I want to ask you legitimately, and I'm going to make fun of you. No, I'm not going to make fun of you here. Do you know who Colin Powell is?
I don't.
Okay, this is sad. Colin Powell, first black U.S. Secretary of State. Also the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, I believe, under H.W. Bush as well. So coming up around the time of Operation Iraqi Freedom, I'm sorry, Gulf War, same thing. Colin Powell was the second biggest name out there behind Norman Schwarzkopf, but he had more staying power from a political perspective. Just a giant of a man, a remarkable man. So, yeah, losing Colin Powell today. Yeah, big time, especially by my generation.
That's very unfortunate. Yep. May he rest in peace. Let's get right to the holidays.
COVID death, too.
Yeah, he did die from COVID. Yeah. Let's cheer things up before we conclude this segment. Let's talk about the holidays. First up, National No Beard Day.
How is that cheering anybody up?
I don't know.
Let's cheer everybody up. No beer for you. No beer for you.
No, beard. Facial hair.
Beard.
Why would you go no beard? This ain't prohibition.
I thought you said no beer.
No. That would have been
That's
the most
way better.
way
I'm not a beard guy. I don't understand the beards. They're dirty.
Well, I feel like if you can grow one out, if you're getting like a full shade in, by the time 5 o'clock hits, then like what's the point of shaving every day? But for me, can't do it. So no beard. I'm festive every day. And finally, National Chocolate Cupcake Day.
Fantastic.
That's going to conclude this day in history.
That is going to conclude this day in history. We're going to take a quick break when we come back. Rolled tape on Medical Monday. So let's talk with medical oncologist Dr. Lauren Zadaran about Breast Cancer Awareness Month next. All right, so play the rejoin over there and then just write in. Play the rejoin, the Medical Monday rejoin over here, and then just fire that off in Adobe, and we're good to go. Okay. Later. Yes, it is time for Medical Monday, and yes, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and that is what we were talking about today. Dr. Lauren Zadaran is a medical oncologist with Our Lady of the Lake and joins us right now. Dr. Zadaran, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. We're doing well today. Thank you for having me.
No, glad to have you on here. Glad to be talking about this. October has, having a Breast Cancer Awareness Month has really changed the game. I mean, you could say the NFL players are wearing pink shoes, big deal. But breast cancer awareness, breast cancer treatment has come a long way even the last decade. We are just light years away from where we've been. Let's start with treatment. How much better are we now than we were a decade ago with treating breast cancer?
Sure. So even though the incidence of breast cancer is going up over the last decades with more women being diagnosed with cancer, we've actually had more than a 40% decline in mortality over the last 3 decades. So treatment strides have gotten better despite the fact that breast cancer diagnoses are rising.
Seeing that mortality rate drop is always a good thing. 0 would be ideal, but as we keep getting closer and closer to it, it is encouraging every single day. Is breast cancer something that's preventable?
So there's many things that women and men can do to lower their overall cancer risk, and specifically it includes healthy lifestyle choices such as eating healthier foods. A Mediterranean diet or low-carbohydrate diet has been shown to reduce risk for breast cancer specifically. In addition, trying to limit or avoid alcohol completely can lower the risk of breast cancer as well as other types. And then striving for over 150 minutes per week of regular physical exercise can lower the risk by helping a patient maintain a healthy weight. For younger women, if they're choosing to breastfeed their children, that may also lower their risk. And in our older postmenopausal women, they can choose to limit hormonal therapy or try to use the shortest amount necessary to manage any menopausal symptoms. The last thing I'd throw out there is during the pandemic era especially, it's so important to find ways to manage our stressors. And although there's no studies to suggest stress leading to cancer, I do think that in general is a healthy lifestyle habit for all of us to try and take at this time.
Now, I hesitated to even use the word prevention in there because nothing's 100%, but it is, I guess mitigating would be a better word. As we've moved through the pandemic, we've all adopted that word in our vocabulary. But when it comes down to it, are there certain groups that are breast cancer is more prevalent with certain groups than others?
Sure. So the first thing is, one thing we cannot control is that as we get older, we're more likely to develop cancer. And in fact, 1 in 8 women will have a lifetime chance of ever having developed breast cancer, and that risk goes up as we get older. However, there are a couple of modifiable risk factors, one being obese patients, so working on those efforts I stated above to try and lower total body fat. Diabetics, so trying to gain control over the insulin and glucose control in the body. And then if someone is a smoker, they can lower their risk further by trying to quit smoking and being successful to maintain abstinence.
What about family tree? What about your history? What about your if you've got relatives who have had it, is there any transference there? I know it's always a good idea to seek treatment sooner or be on the lookout sooner, but is there anything to, you've got a family history of it?
Certainly. So it's so important to know the family history. And so I want to remind people that cancer isn't the dirty word that it used to be. And so we can talk about this and be open with it in our families just to know who has been affected in the past. And that can lead someone to be a higher risk patient. Those higher risk patients that are identified by their doctors then may want to choose to seek out more enhanced screening techniques for detecting breast cancer earlier. They may even be recommended genetic testing to determine if they have an inherited cancer. And if there were one of those mutations present, they may even go as far to be recommended preventative surgery or mastectomies or medications to help lower their risk for developing a breast cancer in the future.
Let's talk stages, because we all know that with most types of cancer, there are different levels. What are the stages of breast cancer?
So breast cancer is staged from 0 to 4. 0 is called ductal carcinoma in situ, or DCIS, which is a non-invasive cancer. Our early stage invasive cancers are stages 1 to 2. And a stage 3 is a locally advanced cancer, meaning a larger cancer or one with more lymph node involvement. The last stage is stage 4, or metastatic or advanced breast cancer, where cancer cells may have left the breast lymph node system and traveled to other organs or bones in the body.
As with all kinds of cancer out there, early detection is the key, so that comes down to testing. What do y'all do to test for breast cancer?
So for an average risk woman, they should start their mammograms at age 40 and continue that on a yearly basis until their physician feels that they no longer need screening mammograms. However, even if a mass is felt below the age of 40, a woman should seek care from her physician, and other testing such as breast ultrasound, diagnostic mammograms, and or biopsy of this mass are often performed when a mass can be felt.
Now, when it comes to mammograms, there's a difference between screening and diagnostic. What are the differences there?
So both screening and diagnostic mammograms are using low-dose X-rays, and this helps to examine the breast and spot any changes to the breast tissue in places that can't be felt on an examination. The difference is screening mammograms are performed once a year in patients that don't currently have signs or symptoms of breast cancer. It's a shorter procedure, taking about 10 to 15 minutes, and fewer pictures are taken from different angles. A diagnostic mammogram is used if someone has an abnormal finding that is found on the screening mammogram, or if there are obvious changes on exam where there's a high suspicion initially for breast cancer. So those women would have a longer, more detailed examination with more pictures taken at multiple angles, multiple compression, in order to get a more detailed evaluation of what those abnormal findings are. The additional patient population that receives diagnostic mammograms are those that have a personal history of breast cancer. So in their early years of follow-up and surveillance, they continue to have those detailed pictures with mammogram imaging.
Once you've seen something on the mammogram, it's time for treatment, or once something's diagnosed, we move on to treatment. What are some of the treatments that are out there?
So surgery is the mainstay of treatment. However, other therapies include chemotherapy, radiation, targeted therapy, hormone-blocking medicines, and immunotherapy. This list has continued to grow over the years, which is why you heard me say earlier that we've had a 40% decline in mortality over the last several decades.
Yeah, the decline in mortality has been marked, to say the least. I actually was on the local board for Susan G. Komen for about 6 years, so I got kind of a firsthand look at how early detection and early treatment has been just so effective in recent years. Let's talk about some of the side effects of the surgery. What side effects are there for breast cancer surgery?
So breast cancer surgeries can come with a number of side effects. This can include numbness, tingling, or even loss of nipple sensation or loss of sensation throughout the entire breast. Some people are left with some body images disturbances when they're trying to adapt to the new way that their new breast looks and feels after the surgery, so there can be some psychological effects as well. In addition, there's risk for swelling of the arm, which is called lymphedema, or fluid buildup at the surgery site, which at times can be uncomfortable.
There's often a want to just pull the trigger on mastectomy right from jump. What goes into that decision-making process, and when do y'all help along the way with making that decision?
So many of the decisions about mastectomy may come back to if an inherited mutation is present or not. In addition, if there's breast cancer cells in multiple different parts of the breast and not just in one localized area, there may be a recommendation for mastectomy. Sometimes it's also personal choice of a patient feeling more comfortable under the guidance of their physician to proceed forward with a mastectomy.
This is one where I just, as a guy, I have to clock out because it's not my body. It's not what I'm going to have to live with after the fact. And interestingly enough, I've seen more husbands be like, "Do it," and the wife is more like, "I don't want to morph who I am." And it's a weird dynamic and a tough spot to be in because you're physically changing who you are.
Yes, I would say that many times with mastectomies there is that gut instinct to just remove the cancer and be done with it, but that may not always be the right initial first step, especially when there's newer therapies out there. In addition, it can give a patient a little bit longer of a time to process through all the emotions that come with thinking about the types of reconstruction following mastectomy, or whether or not to even go flat and not have a reconstructed breast after mastectomy. So there's so many different options out there that it can be quite overwhelming for partners as well as the patients in making these decisions, but at the end of the day, we're all striving to help people stay cancer-free and to be comfortable with who they are.
Yeah, 100%. And it is a tough walk, but it's one that we're improving on every single day. Hey, you mentioned it early on. You said men and women. I can't let this interview go without at least bringing it up. Breast cancer is not just a woman's disease. This is something we've learned a lot about in recent years as well.
That's correct. So men also have a risk of breast cancer, especially in those families that have those inherited mutations, where their men in the family also should be aware, and in certain situations should be in a high-risk clinic situation for preventative measures as well.
Dr. Lauren Zadaran from Our Lady, medical oncologist with Our Lady of the Lake. Where can folks go if they want to learn more about breast cancer and treatment and the like?
American Cancer Society has a good website called www.cancer.org. In addition, there's the Women's Hospital Breast and GYN Cancer Pavilion website at www.womans.org. Both of these have excellent information for patients regarding breast cancer prevention and treatment options.
We are just about, or a little more than halfway through with Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we appreciate the information. Dr. Zadaran, thanks for hopping on board.
No problem. Y'all have a great day.
Of course, we got all the way through October 31st with Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And again, full disclosure, I don't like to play recorded stuff and make you think that it's live in studio right now. I sat down with Dr. Zadaran late last week, and really one of the more interesting takeaways is the advancements in how far we've come. And I hesitated to bring it up with her about, the number of husbands that are just like, no, let's get this done, taken care of, and the number of wives who are like, I'm not asking you to chop a piece of your body off. But her answer to that was unbelievably interesting. All right, we're not nearly done with the show just yet. Fox News' Brett Baier is going to join us in our next segment. Got Brett coming on at 8:40 to be talking about, he's the chief political anchor for Fox News Channel and the anchor and executive editor of Special Report with Brett Baier. Got a new book called To Rescue the Republic, Ulysses S. Grant, The Fragile Union, and the Crisis of 1876. Are we seeing parallels with today? We'll talk with Brett Baier in our next segment. Before we get you to news, though, got to tell you about the folks over at Mathern's. Whoa, Saturday was electric across the board. As I arrived on campus, made my way into Mathern's, I got a little game day tradition, right? I'll stop in. I'll get a couple of Topo Chico fizzy waters, grab a Red Bull, and then maybe a snack, a light snack. Did that on Saturday as well. Except Saturday, I was looking for a sausage biscuit. Had to get me some breakfast for a morning kickoff. Look, either way, Mathern's has got you covered. And lining up for this game this weekend, LSU's going to be on the road, 2:30 kickoff at Ole Miss. You know what's great for on the road? A party tray for entertaining at your home. So why don't you swing on by either location of Mathern's and set yourself up to get delivered for this weekend. Party trays are available right now for the Ole Miss game. Also, don't forget to download the app. Don't forget to download the Mathern's app. Start earning points over there right now. All right, time for CBS News. Brett Baier after this. 838, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Did you make it out to Boo at the Zoo over the weekend? No, a lot of folks were keyed in on LSU on Saturday, but Boo at the Zoo was going on Saturday and Sunday, and will be going on at the Brex Baton Rouge Zoo this coming Saturday and Sunday as well. It is a Merry Not Scary event. Kids 12 and under will get their bags of candy on the way out the door. There are costume contests available. A ton of events surrounding Boo at the Zoo as well. Learn more at brzoo.org, or just go on out this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Brex Boo at the Zoo will be going on all weekend long. Coming up here in about 1 minute from right now, Brett Baier is going to hop on the hotline. Brett is he's the chief political anchor for Fox News Channel, also the anchor and executive editor of the Special Report with Brett Baier. So he's got a new book out called To Rescue the Republic, Ulysses S. Grant and the Fragile Union and the Crisis of 1876. What was the crisis of 1876? Well, in his final weeks in the White House, Ulysses S. Grant faced a crisis that threatened to undo his life's work. It was a contested presidential election. It produced no clear victory for either Republican Rutherford B. Hayes or Democrat Samuel Tilden, who carried most of the former Confederacy. The Democrat carried the Confederacy. Soon, Southern states vowed to revolt if Tilden was not declared the winner. Grant was determined to use his influence to conserve the Union, establishing an electoral commission to peaceably settle the issue. Grant brokered a grand bargain, the installation of Republican Hayes to the presidency, with concessions to the Democrats that effectively ended Reconstruction. This painful, though perhaps necessary compromise saved the Union, but consequences of Reconstruction's rollback still haunts the country to this day. Obviously, it's not apples to apples. Nothing in 1876 is going to be apples to apples to something that happens 140 years later. 140 plus. But are there similarities in the level of conflict, the level of discord, the level of distrust, the level of disdain between the crisis of 1876 and what's going on in our nation right now? I mean, Congress is about to convene or dive back into the January 6th Commission. Do we have similarities there? And more importantly, do we have a Ulysses S. Grant today? We're going to talk with Brett Baier here in just a minute. Before we get to Brett Baier, though, I want to recap today's top news. Well, I shouldn't say today's top news. Yesterday's top news. Ed Ogeron and LSU will be parting ways at the end of the season. We'll dive back into that in our next segment. Also, former Secretary of State, the first black Secretary of State, Colin Powell, passed away this morning as well. So we'll talk about both of those news items in our next segment. Right now, though, time to welcome on the chief political anchor for Fox News. He is Brett Baier, and he joins us now. Brett, good morning. Welcome to Talk 107.3. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Doing great.
Glad to have you on here. Glad to be talking about this book because as I'm reading up on it, reading up on the nature of the book, I can't help but notice that there's a lot of similarities, not necessarily in the nature of the crisis or even there's very few similarities between 1876 and today socially, but the level of discord that's out there right now, are there similarities between then and now?
Yeah. So as I was finishing To Rescue the Republic, and this is about Grant, and mostly about Grant's time as president, as we were kind of wrapping up the book, the January 6th riot happens on Capitol Hill, and that's actually how the book starts, is I write about anchoring that day, covering it. But what it does, I do, is it gives you a perspective about where we've been as a country. And it is very partisan now, and it's very split, divided. But back then, a contested election almost led to the tipping back to a civil war Part 2. And Grant's biggest role as president is to win the peace, to make sure that the Union stays together, to originally start the process and continue the process of Reconstruction. The 14th, 15th Amendments are under Grant, the citizenship for blacks and the right to vote. He fights the KKK with federal troops. He does some significant things that we often overlook. Mm-hmm. So it's different, obviously, but we're in partisan times, and it just gives you a perspective on where we've been before.
not just where we've been before, but how we got out of it. So I guess that would be my next question: is there any ability to replicate what was done then with what can be done today?
Yes. Well, so that is a great question, and one in which the climax of this book is this contested election in 1876. Basically, just to sum it up, South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana send up two sets of electors, Republican Rutherford B. Hayes and the Democrat Samuel Tilden. And they're undecided. And it's a couple of weeks, violence starts to bubble up. And Grant, behind the scenes, organizes this effort with both Hayes folks and Tilden people and people on Capitol Hill to come up with an election commission. And they decide to make this deal. So to your question, it takes leadership. It takes someone that's going to bring the country together, even in the worst and darkest of times.
Which walks me right up to the next question. Do we have a Ulysses S. Grant today?
That is the question. I don't see one yet. Obviously Joe Biden ran as a moderate and a conciliatory candidate. Arguably he's governing like a much further left president just by the legislation that he's sending forward. But I think we don't have a Grant figure as of yet. I think the most modern contemporary could be Dwight D. Eisenhower, who really worked across the aisle and he had this thought that we should get the things done that we agree on first and then fight about what we don't agree on. But up on Capitol Hill, I tell you, it is frustrating because there's a lot of things that people agree on, but they go to their corners, they go to their battle positions because of elections.
Fox News' Brett Baier is our guest. We're talking about his new book, To Rescue the Republic, Ulysses S. Grant, The Fragile Union and the Crisis of 1876. Brett, previous books by you, 3 Days at the Brink, FDR's Daring Gamble to Win World War II, 3 Days in Moscow, Ronald Reagan and the Fall of the Soviet Empire, 3 Days in January, Dwight Eisenhower's Final Mission. What's it like to cover something for more than 3 days?
Well, that series, I started this process, I guess 8-10 years ago, and I just fell in love with history. And the first book was the Eisenhower book. It took 3 years to do. And, finding these nuggets, these treasure troves in the National Archives of stories that hadn't been out there before, hadn't been weaved together like this. The 3 Days series is the beginning, middle, and end of the Cold War. So it's actually in reverse order. It's FDR, then Eisenhower, then Reagan. And it kind of fit all together. But what it did that's similar to this book is illuminate a part of history that's largely overlooked or misunderstood. And I think the Grant presidency is one of those times.
Studying history, does it give you more positivity or more cynicism about the state of things today? Are you able to see things from the past, like we talked about a minute ago? Are you able to see things from the past that can be replicated, that can pull our union back out, or pull our nation back out to where it could be or where it should be, or seeing the differences in the level of discord and distrust today? Does your historical perspective lend to more positivity or cynicism about today?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I tend to lean towards more positivity because, listen, my takeaway is this. To keep our republic requires constant vigilance. I mean, our freedoms are not automatically given, and they have to be pursued and won repeatedly. And every new election is kind of a symbol of our faith in us as a nation. So I do take positivity because I think the pendulum swings, and America is a good has a good sense of leaders for the moment. Grant was the leader that we needed in that moment. Took over for really one of the worst, if not the worst, presidents we've had in Andrew Johnson, who took Lincoln's vision and erased it or went backwards. So I do feel a positivity about where we can be as long as we choose to be.
What was the most surprising thing you learned about Ulysses S. Grant during this journey?
Well, there's a couple things. One was how he's very slight and not an imposing figure at all. And he starts winning these battles, and the photographers are taking pictures of him on a horseback, and he's slumped over, and his uniform's all ratty, and he's got muddy boots. And they essentially photoshopped his head onto a different standing erect in the saddle body. The first Photoshop in the Civil War times, and they put that picture out because they thought that was more of a general they should see. The other thing is that Lincoln invites the Grants to go to Ford Theater that night of the assassination, and Grants they had to go see their kids in New Jersey, and he arrives in New Jersey and learns of the assassination and is really beset by guilt because he thinks he could have saved Lincoln. But he would have been an assassination target as well.
Wow. Okay. Little survivor's guilt on the back end. I did not see that one coming. He is Fox News' Brett Baier. The book is available right now. Excuse me one second. It is called To Rescue the Republic, Ulysses S. Grant, The Fragile Union, and the Crisis of 1876. Brett, thank you so much for hopping on today, man.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Got your money now coming your way in 30 seconds, which is enough time for me to remind you about our staycation giveaway. It is going on right now. Just go to talk1073.com. Take our staycation survey. You'll be instantly registered for one of two staycations. One is at the Watermark Hotel, which gets you a one-night stay with valet and dinner for two at the Gregory. The other is at the Renaissance. That's a one-night stay with breakfast for two and dinner for two at Tallulah. Register now by taking our staycation survey at talk1073.com. All right, your money now coming your way. We will close it out next. All right, hey, YouTuberies, I've got to get out as soon as we're over with because I've got my Monday morning meeting. So I'm telling you now. Thank y'all for putting up with me this morning. What happened? Well, I see you turned it back on. Did you? What happened? Okay. We're done with them. I think we're done with them. Yep. So he was pretty fantastic, huh? Galen says, nice to hear some focus on Ulysses S. Grant. So much is said about the traitor Robert E. Lee. Yeah. I was impressed with that interview. I was super happy with it. I wonder if Colin Powell was vaccinated. Brian, do you know? I don't know. He's 84 years old. I would hope he was vaccinated. .856 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. One segment to go here on Mornings with Brian Haldane before we get out of here. Handing off to the Fox News Rundown and then Brian Kilmeade. Thanks again to Brett Baier for hopping on. Intriguing stuff about Ulysses S. Grant. Little survivor's guilt coming out of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Photoshopping. The first instance of photoshopping. That's cool stuff. It sounds like a great book. Thanks to Brett Baier for hopping on board. Thanks again to Dr. Zadaran for Medical Monday. In our 7 o'clock hour, Stephen Wagasback and Matt Moscona. And in our 6 o'clock hour, the president of AARP, as well as Richard Condon. Speaking of the interviews with, or the segments with Condon and Moscona, be remiss if I didn't close out there as well. Ed Ogeron will close out the season, the 2021 season with LSU. And then they will part ways. LSU and Ed Ogeron. The big announcement came down yesterday. Both the coach and the athletic director have letters available at LSUsports.net talking about the reasoning behind it, whatnot. Ogeron's basically to make $17 million, not coach after this year. That's the way that breaks down. He's getting his buyout. He's being released without cause. That being said, you're going to start to hear a number of rumors, stories, if you will, about things that have gone on under his tenure that would give cause. And this is one of the questions I asked Moscona, and he had a dynamite answer for it, was why pay a man $17 million and let him coach out the rest of the season if you had cause to fire him and not have to pay him $17 million? And one of the things Matt said was that vote was not unanimous. But that being said, do you really want to bog the university and the program down with a lawsuit? As of right now, I'm more interested in what's going to happen over the next 5 games than I am with who's going to be the next head coach. I know that sounds weird to say it out loud, but this is going to be a weird predicament. Will the team rally? And if the team does rally, what then? let's say the fire you saw from LSU on Saturday carries itself up to Oxford, Mississippi, and the Tigers can beat Ole Miss. Then you got 2 weeks to get ready for Alabama. Now, let's say the absolute unthinkable happens and LSU beats Alabama. And then UL Monroe, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. But let's just say they went out and they finished 9-3. Now you got to look back on this and say the LSU standard of excellence has to be better than 9-3. Which I'll be willing to make that argument, sure, but it just, if you're riding on the on-field stuff, it sets a weird precedent. If you're riding on the off-field stuff, why let them go without cause? I don't know. All right, we got a stacked up show tomorrow as well. I don't have enough time to run down the full guest list. Just enough time to tell you Fox News Rundown's next. Thanks for listening. All right, YouTube, I got to get to my Monday morning meeting. Thank y'all so much for watching.